Hello and welcome to the Summer School and YouTube channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, welcome to the podcast. My name is Nico, and if you're into this kind of content, what's that content you say? Where I just talk about everything in and around education, sometimes stuff outside of it. Although I am an ex-teacher, I still am fascinated by the world of educational institutions. I think it serves everyone to kind of be conscious as to what's going on in them. And with this video, I hope to talk about a topic that could use some more conversation around it. But before I get to that, if you're interested in that content, please subscribe to the channel. If you like the content that I have and I'm talking about in this video, like the content, like the video. All the engagement helps me out, and I deliver work every Friday, so hopefully you enjoy what we have for you here today. Quick housekeeping. I had another article published on Wrong Speak. It is the video that I did, the video essay of how teachers are taught. I wrote that into an essay, and it's been published on the Wrong Speak website. I will put that in the description box below if you're interested in reading a much more defined essay of that video essay. Basically, all the support is appreciated. So if you haven't gotten kind of my philosophy from this channel, I really value individuality. I think the pursuit of self-actualization and self-love is paramount in one's life. It is a task that it needs to be undertaken every single second of the day, and it is a very hard task to do. Discovering yourself and rediscovering yourself. It requires daily maintenance that can never be compromised, but it is something that is worth it because the feeling of liberation when epiphanies are found as to, oh, I learned something about myself today, about myself, my single person. That feeling alone is something that cannot be described, and it is better to be experienced. I love for that experience to be felt by everyone. However, I am not naive. I understand that people have perceptions of me, and they will apply labels to me whether I like it or not. It's out of my control. I don't lose sleep over it because I learned very early on that when people give you labels, that's for their own comfort, not for me. And I've been called, hey, you're the black man, you're the person of color, you're the ethnic minority. But for this video, I'm going to talk about one that I can't run away from, and that is, oh, you're a good male teacher. I hear it all the time. Oh, it's so good to have a male teacher on campus. Oh, it's so great that, you're male and it helps. And that phrase and any sort of that line of comments, it irks me. And I know it comes from a good place with the people that say it. I like the people that say it to me. But when they say it to me, it's kind of like a little bit of a nails on a chalkboard situation, because with that statement and that kind of thinking, I simultaneously agree with it and disagree with it. And in this video, I'm going to go into how I can feel both of those things at the same time. Now, it probably helps to actually give you the hard numbers on the demographics of the sexes that make up elementary schools. So I will also share this link in the description if you're interested to see. But I'm getting this information from a website called Zippia. And just quick context so you know how they got their numbers. Using a database of 30 million profiles, Zippia estimates demographics and statistics for elementary school teachers in the United States. Our estimates are verified against BLS, census, and current job openings data for accuracy. With all of that information that they have, the final tally count, according to them, for the sex demographics of elementary schools is I don't know if I can. There you go. I don't know if you hear that on the mic. A little drum roll. Women make up 80% of the workforce, where men only make up 20%. So, before I share my opinion, that is a big disparity, obviously. But before I share my opinion, this is just my own opinion. Please do not graft my musings and my observations onto other males in this field. It doesn't help, honestly. And I'm only speaking and giving my 2 cents because, as you can see, there's not a lot of men in the field, and I'd like for something to be out in the ether, so this conversation around the value of having males in elementary school can continue, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of talk about it. There's usually just jokes, and I'll get into that later. But here's why I value having males in elementary schools. I can't deny that there are developmental benefits for children to be around positive male influences. If I were to say it doesn't matter, then I would just be completely delusional. It does matter. It helps. And I mean, from my experience, there are things that I can do as a male teacher that my female colleagues can't do. Does that make them better or worse than me? No, it's just differences. This is an institution. Actually, a lot of public serving institutions put forth this value of diversity. That's an example of diversity. The fact that we have different skill sets and different things we are capable of. Embrace those differences. Don't shame the differences, and also don't ignore the differences. Yes, there are differences between me and my female colleagues. There are also a lot of similarities, but those differences can create very wide-ranging social dynamics, so to say. So I can't deny that. And I think to show the complexity of this statement, and first I'll start again with why I agree with it. I'm going to tell the story of one of my students, Jayden. Now, when I was working in childcare, and even when I was a teacher, I loved hosting tournaments. I thought having tournaments for board games and having tournaments for outdoor games was fun. Double elimination, high stakes. I would put aside my own money to buy a $25 gift card, $20 gift card to Dave & Buster's. The people in first place would get this. Everyone who played in the tournament would get a little pint of ice cream. So even if they didn't make it to the championship, they got ice cream at the end, and they got to watch highly competitive games, seeing the kids' hands shake while they were holding cards or about to start the final match. Seeing kids act under the bright lights that to me gives them healthy exposure to just pressure, and pressure with low stakes and at the same time high stakes. I don't know how to explain it, but when I hosted the tournaments, winners and losers would just always say it was fun experience. But back to Jayden. I was hosting a wall ball tournament. Wall ball is basically, it's kind of like handball, I guess. You hit the ball to the floor, it bounces off the wall, back to the floor, and then the other person hits it. First one to miss scores points. Jayden was playing out of his mind the whole tournament. He made it all the way to the championships without losing a single match. Now, as he was waiting in the championship, the person he sent to the losers bracket. So double elimination, you can lose one match, but if you lose another one, you're kicked out of the tournament. So the guy that Jayden sent to the losers bracket won every single match in losers to come back to the championship match to run it back with Jayden. And they played to the very last score. And in the end, the kid from the losers bracket was just a little more tenacious, and he won the entire tournament. Now, the kid who won was a great sport, settled his excitement, took the time to shake Jayden's hand. They shook hands, but Jayden was heartbroken. He was crying, sobbing, and His friends were like, "Yo, man, it's all good, it's all good." But when I took the kids back to the classroom, my female colleague, upon seeing Jayden crying, what she says is, "Oh my gosh, Jayden, are you crying? Be a man." Of course, my reaction was, "Oh, don't say that," but it's not good to yell at your colleagues in front of the kids. So I took Jayden back outside and I said, "Jayden, it's totally fine to feel what you are feeling. Feel it. Welcome to sport. The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. They are two sides of the same coin of competition. When you enter a competition, you have to be open to experiencing both. Right now, you're getting the tough side of the coin, but don't let that lead you away from experiencing the possibility of the other side." And I say all that because goes back to why I agree with that statement of the value of having male teachers and male educators. How validating must that be for Jayden to hear a man encourage him to feel his emotions without coddling him from the realities and the flashes of despair that comes with experiencing failure. That must have meant a lot to Jayden. And here's why I also disagree with valuing having a male in that situation. Because what if I were the one who said what my coworker said? He comes into the door and I say, "Jayden, are you crying? Be a man." And my colleague is the one who pulls him aside and says what I just said verbatim. Does the substance of what is said to Jayden diminish because of the external appearance of my coworker? I'd like to think no. I just because the message has been put into the hands of a different messenger does not negate the message. Now, the counter argument to that I'll give credence to is, Nico, of course it's going to be way worse if you say that as a man to a young male student. They're going to grow up to constantly have hyper scrutinizing their own self masculinity. They're going to be always unable to relate to men and all of this stuff. And look, to that I say, to predict the trajectory of a child from just a single moment of conflict in their life, with the exception of sexual assault and physical assault. If it's just disagreeable ideas, a mean remark, or things like that, to try and predict the trajectory of that child is a fool's errand. And it's been said a lot. Kids are more resilient than you think. As a young boy, I've heard adult males say ugly things to me. And did it affect me? Yeah, in the moment it did. And eventually I took ownership over all of that. And I came to the conclusion that the ugly things that were said to me by those men were consequences of their own their own unaddressed suffering. Being resentful to them doesn't improve my quality of life. That's their own pain being expressed in pain that goes outwards towards other people. That had nothing to do with me, whatever they said. Why would it be a benefit to my life to just hold just be resentful of that individual? No. And you know where I got that idea of accountability and ownership? I got that from men and women. This is why I get annoyed by this pursuit of getting male representation in elementary schools. Yes, it's something to value, but when you obsess over the external appearances of the demographic makeup of any workforce, I believe that when you do that, you are compromising quality, and you are distracting yourself from being able to recognize the universality of certain ideas. The universality of what I said to Jayden, of being able to feel pain and also accept that pain is a part of competition, that could be delivered from a white woman. It could be delivered from a black woman, a Chinese man. It could be delivered by a transgender person. The message still stands, and the phrase goes in hip hop: "Real recognize real." Just because it is said by someone with an external appearance that isn't of the quota that is valued by the institution does not make it any less true. So, yes, this is what we're operating with: 80% women, 20% men. I would love for more males to get into this field, but I also understand why a lot of males aren't in the field. There's a lot of insecurities and generally speaking, in the male culture, and I don't shun it. I don't condemn it. Some guys are like, if you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, there's Frank's Little Cuties is a great episode, and some people are just like Frank. Some men are just like Frank, where they're petrified of being around little kids because they are so terrified of just the optics of being a male working with kids. That's an insecurity that's in the male culture. And being a male in this field, you got to be able to take those jokes and take those slights or take those stereotypes. Because if you have that chip on your shoulder, if I got to change society's view, you're not there for the kids. You're just not. You're there for an agenda. And this is what I feel about representation, and I'm only going to talk about it as it relates to males and females in the field for this video. Part 2 will be about race. But if I had to choose between working at two schools, and one school was with this exact same demographics, even worse, let's say 90% women and 10% men, and going to a school where it was all men, the 90 and 10 would market themselves as we're a place that values rigor, discipline, accountability. And the all-men school markets themselves as we're a school that prides itself in having an all-male staff. I'm going to the 90-10 school. Why? Because if the goal of an educational institution is to deliver the highest quality product to the students and the parents that enter within those walls, then if it comes in the form of an all-white staff and I'm the only black staff or black member, or it comes in the form of all black staff and maybe like two white people, I am going to the school that has the demographics that are all over the place or in one direction. But I don't want to go to a place that prides itself in how it appears. That to me is a red flag. And if I'm hiring as a principal, I want the teacher that is passionate about working with children and educating children first. When they speak to me, they say, I love working with children, and I believe that education is an essential asset to have in living in this world. If they introduce me as that, instead of introducing themselves as, I want to be a black man, I don't think a lot of the kids get exposure to black people, I will always go with the former, because that motivation will yield a longer and more tenacious effort to constantly deliver for the kids than the person who's just there for kind of like a mirror in terms of look at how these kids react to working with this external appearance. That motivation is short-sighted, and I don't know. I think that's all I gotta say for part one. If I have to close this, I will say, males, if you're interested in working with kids and getting into this field of education and childcare, I will say it is the funnest pursuit, especially when you're young in your 20s. Like the amount of hours and the amount of money I got paid playing football, playing capture the flag, playing basketball, seeing kids play these sports and all the board games. It I couldn't believe that I was getting paid and finding opportunity in this field. You're going to come into a lot of stereotypes and you're going to have to deal with double standards and perception. But if you're there to just make the kid's life happier in the time that you work with them, then that's going to help you power through all that stuff. Get past your insecurities and then join the field. But don't come into this field just because you want to be a male in this industry. The industry doesn't need that. The industry needs people who want to better the children. So that's part one. The next video I will talk about race and representation. But if you like this video, again, like, subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed the talk. Please leave some comments. I want to know, am I crazy for having this sort of take on being a male in elementary schools? Let's keep the talk going. Take care.